Hi, Amanda. Welcome to this conversation this afternoon. Amanda Gascoigne from Amanda Gascoigne Consulting Services in the Newcastle, Port Stephens area. How are you today, Amanda?
Great, Peter. How are you? Thanks for having
Uh, I'm fine, thanks. Getting close to Christmas.
me.
Amanda, what are your feelings on what's happened in the decade that's about to end? Um, the first part of this new generation of years that we've just finished experiencing.
Yeah, I think there's certainly been a lot of change in the accounting industry with the technology, for one thing. But I think there's been so many more accountants setting up practices than what there probably has been the 10 years prior to that. So when I started in practice 20 years ago. And I think that's, people are chasing their dreams to be their own boss, to create a better life for themselves and, their families. So we're seeing a lot more small and solo accounting practices set up, I think in the last, 10 years. The ability for them to set up, the barriers to entry are a lot lower than what they were, 20 years ago. They can just set up at home quite easily and it's accepted. Working from home probably wasn't as accepted as it has been now. The ability to work at different locations, so not even being at home, but people who might want to travel, and that's no longer seen as being a negative. It's actually seeing about walking your talk, basically. And the technology has just been amazing in that space. So they don't need to just be working with clients in their own local region. They can choose a niche and work, wherever they want, with whoever they want. The cost of that technology in relation to that, again, so much more affordable. A lot of the stuff that was, available 20 years ago was out of the realms of small and solo accounting practice owners. You had to have a big chunk of money to invest in particular software. Now with the subscription type models on practically everything, it's making it more affordable and, actually so much more enjoyable as well. So I think that's probably one of the things. A lot of practice owners, I think there's a lot of room for improvement in a lot of practices, and just that change of mindset that technology is available and it is a lot more affordable than what it has been in the past. And I believe that a lot of practice owners are still not looking for those software developments. They're thinking that it is out of their realms, where, that's probably one of the things that I'd like to encourage practice owners to have a look at, using that technology, and it's more affordable than what they probably have thought about.
Yeah,
So I
okay.
think there's a lot of opportunity to really, and also to develop, a niche, really working out what their vision is and really running with that. Don't be stuck in a particular corner because they feel like they have to do that. They need to really understand what their vision is and just go for it. There's plenty of work for all accountants. It's really, the challenge is finding their sweet spot and working out who they want to work with and what sort of work they want to do. And that's, that's really where the sort of magic sort of happens. And then they're not sort of feeling, because I know that a lot go into this with these great dreams and then it's not as good as what they thought it was going to be, because they've actually fallen into old ways, or they've got this, they want this contemporary practice, but they're still holding on to so many traditions that they've actually brought with them from their previous firms.
Right. Yeah, I think one of the key issues that comes out of what you just said is possibly the concept that they could offer more of a chief financial officer service to their clients, to be more involved in helping them, especially in niche markets, in becoming an expert in the industries that their clients are from.
Yes.
So that they're able to dig down into the figures, help the client run a better business.
Yeah.
Was the theme of a very interesting letter to the editor that Accountants Daily published back in April, and I found that a very interesting insight that letter writer brought out, that he wasn't really interested in tax. He knew he had to pay it, but he didn't want to sit down for hours talking about tax. But what he did want to do is have his accountant commit to meeting with him every 3 months. In fact, he
Yeah.
advocated that the bookings be made 12 months in advance, and that neither of them would have the audacity to cancel that
Yeah.
appointment, and wanted to really sit down and use his accountant as if he or she actually was there full time working 40 or 50 hours a week in
Yeah.
that business, so
Yeah.
that they would understand the figures, understand how it all worked, made sure that key performance indicators were understood, that whoever was supposed to be using them uh, understood how they were calculated and how they could be used to improve the business's overall operations. I see this as the opportunity that's there for the profession
Yeah.
to become far more than historical recorders, which unfortunately is what we have
Yeah.
been as a profession,
Yeah.
but more in front, forecasting the future, um, being an integral part of the management team. Now, I know there's some challenges there, and
I definitely think there are, but I think that's when when accountants want to go out on their own. That's the vision that they have. They want to help more clients. They want to help businesses, prosper and all that sort of stuff. But what happens? They will get clients. They'll start with a steady run of new clients, and because they are so good, they actually keep getting referrals after referral, and before too long all they're doing is compliance work because they haven't got time to actually focus on that other stuff. So we're seeing that's where their focus is. Whereas if they were a little bit perhaps strategic, not just taking on everyone that walks through their door in those, because they're, as a practitioner, they're excellent, and getting clients really isn't the issue. It's getting the right clients that actually want to buy into that service. So when we talked about some of the changes as well, cost pressure is huge. So if you've just got a business that's solely on compliance, all those fees are quite visible online, and if they think they can just getting that compliance, it's very easy to compare and say, well, I only want to pay this. But when they're getting that great relationship, they're getting that advice, clients will actually pay for it. And so I often think a lot of accountants worry that their clients don't want to pay because they might be fee sensitive in some respects, but that's for the compliance stuff. If they're doing all these other great stuff, meeting with them every quarter, sending out their KPIs, showing them where they're sitting with benchmarks, etc., they will pay that money, and you don't need as many clients. So therefore, you become that sort of that role as the advisor is so much more satisfying. So you are actually an integral part of your client's business.
that's right.
And that is where, that's where the gold is, I believe. And, then you've got those clients for the longer term because you're nurturing those relationships. They're growing their business, you're growing your practice, and it's just a win-win for everyone. But if you're just there, slogging day in, day out, getting tax returns done, meeting all those lodgement deadlines, it's hard. And, it's very hard to make money doing a lot of that stuff, and it's not that enjoyable.
Mm.
So it's not what they've signed up for initially, but unfortunately that's what tends to happen because that's the way they're starting, and it just starts to grow without any strategy.
Okay, so what do you think some of the issues are from business operators coming into this new decade? What are they going to be looking for? What if they all wrote a letter to Accountants Daily?
Yeah.
What would another 100 people say as the type of things that they want their accountants to do?
Well, I think a lot of business owners don't actually understand what value their accountant can bring. So that flip side of that is a lot of clients think accountants just do tax.
Mm.
So it's up to the accountants to communicate from that day one. I believe that's how I did it in practice. So I would actually be really nurturing from that day one. So I would tell a client all the things that we can do, and it's not salesy because I think a lot of accountants have struggled with sales. But it's not salesy. It's actually just giving information. So letting the client know these are some of the services that we offer. Look, it's probably, you don't need these now, but I like to actually go through and tell you all the things that we do for our other clients. So in the event that you need it, you know where to come, because we might think, well, they're not going to need that. go based on these figures, they're not going to need that service. But you don't know what will happen. If you're only seeing a client every 12 months, you don't know whether they've just won a big contract. They probably don't realise at that point they need to talk to you. So it's really opening up those lines of conversation and saying, this is what we do for you. We don't just do tax. So I think it's more communication. So I strongly believe that's what clients want. They want better communication. They want to have those touch points, and they want them to be on their team.
Yeah,
I believe
very, very much so. Yeah,
I don't think that that's actually. I mean, that's how I had my client base was small to medium-sized businesses, and that was my niche. And I sent out newsletters. I sent out newsletters every month. I then changed it to quarterly, but I strongly believe, every month is a great way of communicating. You don't have to be picking up the phone all the time, but if there's something in there that you can actually communicate en masse, then it opens that line of conversation that a client will actually email you. Now, about this grant or about such and such or this new legislation, can you tell me a little bit more about it? It's an opportunity for you to showcase some of those things without actually feeling like you're always wanting to try to sell something. And that's probably one of the strategies that I still use. Everything I did in my accounting practice, I do now in my coaching and, mentoring business. I send out a weekly newsletter. And
I know. I read it. It's very interesting. Very nice.
By Friday. And the amount of lovely comments I get each week from people saying that they just needed to read that today, or that was a really great point, they hadn't heard of that before. And if it's engaging enough, people will open it. They look forward to it. But things like the tax office that might get emailed every week or whatever, often they'll just get automatically filed into the ATO, read at a later date, and so many practices that don't even get to that. So I think, it's about being engaging and knowing what your clients want to hear, which if you've got a niche and you can talk to the same language to everyone, that makes it a lot easier as well. So I think that's one of the things that I teach accountants is really knowing who your ideal client is, so you can be effective when you're communicating. But if you've got clients all over the place, different sizes, different needs, it's very hard to get something out en masse, whether it be a newsletter or on social media. And I think there's some opportunities, creating relationships, because that's what clients buy. And that's one of the biggest things they leave, because they don't feel like that they've been given enough attention and getting the right advice.
Yes, I think there's some real benefits for accountants to be really looking at what their clients are doing. I must admit I've become a keen supporter of the scaling up process. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that in 2020 and in this decade ahead. In fact, I think in 10 years' time, scaling up concept and the concept of small and medium-sized businesses being able to raise capital will be part and parcel of the Australian business scene. We're at the very beginnings of probably both of those items at present. Scaling up is based on some articles that one of the Rockefellers, I can't remember what his Christian name was, wrote over 100 years ago for Standard Oil as how they should go about running a business. And a Professor Vern Harnish in the United States has updated all that material, basically with terminologies and the advent of computers, because even a Rockefeller didn't anticipate a computer 100 years ago, and has talked about the key ingredients of a business, the people, first of all, identifying the strategies and then implementing them. And then very importantly, where's the cash coming from? And I think a lot of people forget that. And over the last 3 years, we've had a bit of a revolution in Australia, which I don't think too many people have really thought about. In this month, 4 years ago, when Turnbull was the Prime Minister, he announced the innovation statement. And since then, we've had the concept of early stage innovation companies. Legislation's been passed and they've been operational now for nearly 2.5 years. We've had crowdsourced funding equity raising, which means that virtually any company in Australia, turnovers up to $25 million, can raise $5 million every year if they wish, and the market supports them. And now one of the more exciting aspects, I think, is that the government has encouraged the banks, and I'll probably say that with inverted commas, to be honest, to put $100 million in each. So they've got $400 million into the fund from the major banks, and there's $20 million coming from a smaller bank. And the government's creating the Australian Business Growth Fund, which is starting soon. And it's going to be run by a separate board and a separate management team. And according to the Federal Treasurer, will invest in companies with turnovers from $2 million to $50 million. So if you look at those three items, early stage innovation companies, crowdsource funding, and now the Australian government stroke banks business growth fund, it's a great improvement on Section 708. And I've been around long enough to have been trying to advise people before 708 started 35 years ago. And it was very difficult in those days trying to get a company put together and have other than your close family involved as such. You could have, guys that have grown up and played football together or cricket together or whatever, but it was very hard because no one could do any promotion or marketing that they were trying to form a company. I'm about to do one that is a startup that we're going to try to raise $2.5 million in January, $2 million under Section 708, 500,000 from crowdsource funding equity raising. I think that's a great opportunity. And I'd like to think that every accountant in Australia understands how that can be done. That's number one. And secondly, that when they're talking to their clients, as you say, at the very first interview, that they discuss these issues so that, and it might only be 2% or even 1% of the companies in Australia that ultimately want to go down that path, but at least they understand it's their opportunity if they wish to do that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And I think one of the other things is, setting things up correctly from day one. I know a lot of accountants will often think, well, let's just do it this way to save a bit of money. Even with the technology, let's just use that Excel spreadsheet or that cash book. I think, when we want to be contemporary, we want to be a leader. We want our clients want to see us as leaders. So, showing them the right way from the start. So, employing software that, real-time information that they've got info about their business, that they've got, a MyHub, a Xero, QuickBooks, a subscription for that. It's very, affordable, and it should be factored into everyone's budget.
Yeah.
And I think those are the sorts of things that we actually, as accountants, can start these people up on the right foot. And, the importance of numbers, the importance of actually making them embrace their numbers and seeing when they need help and all that sort of stuff, where I think that probably doesn't happen as good as it should from a lot of practices because everyone's busy. They're just doing the minimum to get someone by, set them up, and then leave them to their own devices, where I think there should be a lot more nurturing and starting from, from scratch the right way.
As if they were employed in that business full time. They might only be there for the equivalent of 2 hours a week, but it gets them involved.
Yeah, and that's actually, I think when I've actually helped clients look at those things, they actually get, even though they sort of say, oh, well, I wasn't good at maths at school, or that's not my forte, numbers, at the end of the day, the tax office don't care about that. If you're running a business, you need to know your numbers. You can't just wait till every quarter or every 12 months when you see your accountant. So I think we've got a really great opportunity to get more businesses being more successful and, being that as an integral part of their team.
Okay.
Yeah, and not reinventing the wheel, because there's so much resources, which obviously you've got lots of those on offer for small and solo practice owners, that they don't need to reinvent the wheel, and they can, use, ESS BIZTOOls and, and obviously things that I've got as well. And there's so much on the internet these days. Don't reinvent the wheel. Otherwise, often some people don't even get to do anything. So it's better off to really look around and, surrounding yourself with good advisors from an accounting perspective as well, for them to actually be lifted and empowered by other leaders in the industry. Okay.
Well, as part of all this, and as we're embracing the decade of change, which I really believe it's going to be, we have a 25% discount running through January on the products of ESS BIZTOOLS and ESS Small Business. People just go to our websites, www.essbiztools.com.au. And I understand that you've got a seminar in Brisbane early in January. So do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, this is basically, it's no, I'm just doing private
Oh, okay.
one-on-one coaching and mentoring. So yeah, I'm flying up on Tuesday, the 7th of January, and I'll be there until the Friday. So I do have a client the Tuesday and the Friday. So it's really just half day or full days, one-on-one, immersion into helping practice owners really get clear on their strategy and what they want from 2020. And we'll go through and really map out what they want to achieve, what their actions, and then how I can help them. And they'll walk away with, a plan so they can go back to their office and really have that practice of their dreams, setting themselves up for that financial success. Because I think a lot of practitioners, absolutely amazing at what they do. Their clients love them, but they don't practice what they preach, which is why a service like, and what I'm offering is, someone who's had a practice, but started it, from scratch in 99, and all those, peaks and troughs of, having a practice and all the things that, mistakes that often get made. I can help practice owners really navigate those muddy waters at times and really help them have that better practice, better life. And I think, they're not making as much money, I don't believe, as what they should be. They're really valuable, and they're a valuable member of a business's team. And I don't think they're actually reaping the rewards that they should be. So I'm all about helping them value themselves more and start charging what they need to and start doing the work they love. So yeah, helping them map out that and what it looks like.
Okay then, Amanda. Well, thank you very much for joining me today for this conversation. I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And obviously the people who are watching this video, I hope if they're interested in the services you offer, that they contact you, Amanda Gascoigne Consulting, or they can contact me at ESS BizTools or ESS Small Business. So have a great Christmas, and may 2020 really be a great year as the lead in to the decade of change.
I definitely think it will be. I'm really, really optimistic and excited about the decade ahead. And yeah, it's going to be fabulous. I think everyone is gearing up with that, the 2020 vision, they're saying. So it's really, stepping into the space that they really want to be. So yeah, so I wish you and your staff a very Merry Christmas and family, and to all of the viewers and your listeners, Merry Christmas to you as well, and hope 2020 is very prosperous and that you have fun, rewarding and profitable practices.
Oh, geez, that sounds great.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Amanda. Have a great time. Bye-bye.
Bye.